Hi, everyone. My name is Cathy Jurca, and I am a member of the Verdugo Woodlands West Homeowners Association Board. There are many members of the association that are interested in creating a Verdugo Woodlands Historic District, and I have put together this PowerPoint presentation in order to get information out to people so that they can learn a little bit about what a historic district is, why the Woodlands might want to create one, and talk a little bit about other historic districts in Glendale. So the presentation is about 20 minutes. And if you have questions, you can email me. I'm just going to say my email. It's cathjurca@gmail. And I'm happy to answer them, and we can also speak over the phone. Just to tell you a little bit about myself, I'm currently a Historic Preservation Commissioner in Glendale. I've been very active in preservation advocacy for the Glendale Historical Society. And I'm also a professor of English and film history at Caltech. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and get to a better mode of presentation here. So just 1 second. Here we go. All right, so as you can see from the right photo, which is an advertising brochure for the Verdugo Woodlands, this may be an image of Verdugo Park. Developers have trying to interest residents in this area for a very long time. The left photo is a historic photo of a part of our neighborhood. The corner in the foreground is the corner of Hillside and Bonita, and that craftsman you see in the photo is still there. And then behind it is the very large white mansion, now very white mansion at 1616 Wabasso Way. And that house was built in 1914. So as you can see, there's been suburban development in the Woodlands for well over 100 years. So what is a historic district? It's a designated geographical boundary. It can be a neighborhood, it can be a subdivision, or even just a street that has a significant concentration of historic architectural styles and or noteworthy historic development patterns. And most historic districts in Glendale fit into both these categories. It's an area that's considered worth preserving for the future. Glendale has many beautiful, desirable historic neighborhoods. They are aesthetically pleasing, and residents want to make sure that those qualities carry on for future generations. Technically, a historic district is an overlay zone. So our neighborhood is mostly R1 single family or hillside single family. None of that will change. There will just be a historic district zone overlaid on top of that. So here are the criteria for historic district designation from the Glendale Municipal Code. If you'd like to review them more thoroughly, you can pause the presentation. Otherwise, I just wanted to point out that all a district needs to qualify as a historic district in Glendale is to meet one of these criteria. Alternatively, actually, though, most historic districts meet multiple criteria. I believe the ones that are most often met are A, C, G, and H. So why do residents create historic districts? Well, we all moved to the Woodlands for a reason. It's beautiful and we like it here. So residents who create historic districts want to preserve the character and the quality that attracted them to the neighborhood in the first place. It's a way for them to manage change to the environment. Historic districts are not frozen in time. There will still be alterations and additions, but a district helps to ensure that new construction is compatible with existing properties. And by doing this, it really gives residents a voice in the future of their community. Oh, and one more thing. I'm sure most of you have heard about state legislation that is attempting to change single-family neighborhoods in Southern California and elsewhere into multifamily zones. And it's an exaggeration to say that all historic districts are exempt from all state housing legislation, but the trend is definitely that legislation governing changes to single-family zoning are exempting local historic districts. And that includes Senate Bill 9. A possible outcome of its passage is represented on the right side of your screen, where you see single-family neighborhood properties being subdivided and replaced with 4 or up to 8 units on what once was a single-family house lot. So that's certainly not the only reason to favor historic districts. It may not be the most important, but it's definitely one worth considering now. There are also financial incentives. The Mills Act is a state program administered by Glendale that offers significant property tax reductions that average around 50% in exchange for maintaining your property at the highest preservation standards. Glendale offers 2 Mills Act contracts a year for historic district contributors. I'll talk about what contributors are in a minute. That doesn't sound like a lot, but I think to date, in the 4 or 5 years the program has been operating, we've only had 1 application. So why have historic districts? And this is from the Glendale Municipal Code. Again, you can pause if you want to read through it. I just wanted to point out, stabilize and improve property values. Studies have shown that historic district properties either maintain their value better than comparable properties outside historic districts in downturns in the economy, or their value increases at a faster rate than comparable properties outside during boom times. So there is a financial value to historic districts. The LA Conservancy, a preservation organization for all of LA County, a little over a year ago completed a very substantive economic analysis of historic districts in Los Angeles, and its findings back up these claims and offer many other reasons why historic districts are good for Los Angeles, good for the community, and good for the people who live in them. It's called Preservation Positive, and it's on the LA Conservancy website. So the city of Glendale is not going to come in and make you a historic district. It's driven by the community. Residents prepare a detailed application, and when it's ready, it's reviewed by staff, and then is heard by the Historic Preservation Commission at a public hearing. If the commission agrees, yes, there's evidence that this would qualify as a historic district, there is a noticed community meeting where residents can learn about historic districts and the proposed district in particular. And a petition will be circulated to the community. And if 25% of owners plus 1 ask the city to prepare a historic district survey for the area, the city will do it, and it's paid for by the city. Once it's prepared, there's another community meeting, the survey is reviewed, and then finally a second petition, which needs double the percentage of owners to agree to create the historic district. And then final approval lies with council. I should say that most of the districts in Glendale have passed with far more than the 50% minimum. I believe Niobrara Drive, I was the co-applicant and the lead applicant for that historic district, the only one in the Woodlands. I believe our percentage was 78%. And only 2 property owners said no. The others just, we could never arrange a time to get a signature. Sometimes the properties were owned by landlords and I couldn't get in touch with them. And so there are various reasons, but usually the districts prove very popular within the communities that are proposing them. So here are the actual pending districts in black. The actual historic districts in Glendale in black, and 3 pending historic districts, which means they are at various stages of the process of becoming designated historic districts. And I'll just describe a little bit of these. You can see these little circles. Those circles are misleading because there's enormous variation among historic districts. Cottage Grove is the smallest with only 14 homes. And these are homes that were largely developed at the same time in the 1920s with one earlier farmhouse. and that are in the Tudor Revival style. And that's what makes them a distinctive area. This is Cottage Grove on a little hand-drawn map. Rossmoyne is at the other end of the spectrum. It's 503 homes and is the largest in Glendale. It is, most of the development there happened between 1923 and 1950. And it is notable for as an early automobile suburb and for its period revival residences. Again, huge area. And that is the boundary of the historic district. Every historic district needs a boundary. There are properties that are in it and properties that are outside it. How you figure out the boundary is always an important question. In Rossmoyne, it was the original subdivision for the original tract for the Rossmoyne area. So Royal Boulevard was Glendale's first historic district in 2008. It's 30 homes, also period revival residences. Here it is on the map. And then I thought I would also include the Woodlands' own Neodrera Drive Historic District from 2016. This has a longer period. 1909 was when the Neodrera was laid out in that pleasant curvy fashion. And then 1962 is the year that most of the development had come to a close within this area. One of the things that's distinctive about Neodrera is that the landscape is part of the historic district. Most of you have probably seen the street and you're familiar with the lovely river rock curbs, ornamental stream bed, the bridges, and the ponds. Those are considered part of the character of the historic district, and it has a range of architectural styles. So here's our boundary. 3 more historic districts are in the works. Casa Verdugo, 112 homes. South Cumberland Heights, 209. Notice that it just fits in like a jigsaw puzzle to existing historic districts. And Bellhurst Park with 306 homes. So most of the historic districts are in Northwest Glendale or in Rossmoyne. Neodrera Drive is the farthest east and the farthest north, and it would be nice to build on that success, I think. So misconceptions about historic districts. I'm going to go through these and then also give some clarifying facts. They will reduce my property values. I've already addressed that one. My house and neighborhood will be frozen in time. I can't change my house, even the paint color. I apologize for that noise. It was my cat leaping up to stop and smell the flowers. The city will make me restore my house. Government can't tell me what to do with my property. And then it adds another layer of bureaucracy. So the facts: you do not have to do any work on your property. Routine repairs and maintenance don't require review or permits. You don't need any design review for interior work, but if you would need a permit, say to remodel your kitchen outside a historic district, which you do, you need it inside as well. The fee structure for permits is the same as outside the historic district, and the underlying zoning remains the same. Setbacks, density, height limits, parking won't change. Can I add on to my house? Yes, you can. The idea is that within a historic district, alterations and additions will be compatible with the character of the existing house and therefore with the character of the neighborhood. More facts. So when you need to do work, the permit process is similar to the process for any property in the city. There are a few additional exterior changes that don't require a permit, but are subject to review that would not be subject to review in outside the historic district. So for example, if you just want to pull your front door off and put a new one on, if in a historic district, that would likely require review because front doors are part of the character of a historic house, of a contributing historic property. If you wanted to reconfigure the entry, you would need a permit for that in a historic district, but you need a permit for that anywhere in Glendale. Color is not regulated with the rare exception of the decorative woodwork called half timbering that you find on Tudor revival houses. Landscaping is not regulated as a rule unless the survey says it's historically important. I think Neodrera Drive may be the only one that says that. Excuse me. And there are different rules for contributors and non-contributors. So a contributor is a house that is built within a period of significance and also has sufficient integrity. In other words, has not been altered to the degree that it no longer sort of communicates the historic character of either that property or the historic district as a whole. Every historic district has a period of significance. For Neodrera, it was 1909 to 1962. It was from when development began to, with the layout of Neodrera, and then most of the properties, most of the infill development had occurred in this district by 1962. That's usually how the period of significance is determined. Also, 60% of properties must be contributors, must present sufficient integrity and be built within the period of significance for the area to qualify as a historic district. A non-contributor is a house that was constructed outside the period of significance, usually later than the period of significance, or it was significantly altered. Glendale has changed a lot over the years. Many properties have been added to and altered. And it's just important to remember that the term non-contributor is not pejorative. It's simply descriptive. It means that your house is not a contributor, isn't built within the period of significance and has lost some of its integrity. And I should say that a contributor, it's not as though a contributor has to never have been changed. It just has to still, a good baseline is that if the original owner were to stand in front of it, they wouldn't say, "Where's my house?" They would still recognize it in some fundamental way. So these are examples of non-contributors. Both of these houses are historic, but both were built outside the period of significance in the Royal Boulevard Historic District. So again, not pejorative, just descriptive. These houses are non-contributors. So Glendale is very fortunate to have historic district design guidelines to guide people when they want to alter or add to historic district contributors. And there's a section for each architectural style and a selection for each architectural element. And this is really an invaluable tool, even if the Woodlands never adopts another historic district. Say you own a Spanish colonial revival house from the 20s. This guidance, which is available on the Glendale website, will help you figure out what kind of changes would be appropriate, would fit the character and look nice on your home. It also provides clarity on what acceptable changes might be. So the city has rules on what you can or cannot do to your house, no matter where it is located. Glendale has a very robust design review. And so, and that doesn't change within a historic district. If you want to make an addition or make significant changes, you need a permit and your plans need to be reviewed. But it doesn't add another layer of city review of your plans. It just goes through a slightly different channel. So first, the guidelines cover kind of obvious things: doors and windows, exterior finishes and siding, roofs and porches, etc. The guidelines do not cover. They don't cover alterations that are not visible from the street and interiors. The part of your house that would contribute to the historic district would only be what's visible from the street, not what's visible from the backyard. It's really about preserving the character of the neighborhood such that neighbors and visitors can see and appreciate it. It doesn't cover paint color because it doesn't care what color you paint your house. Routine maintenance and repairs, those are all standard. Also, commercial buildings are not covered. So permit approval in historic districts, and this is very similar to the approval process outside historic districts. Additions of 700 square feet or fewer and alterations can be approved at the staff level. If they meet certain requirements. In historic district, it's that they adhere to the guidelines, that they're in compliance. If the remodeling is visible from the street, and that is either inconsistent with the guidelines or more than 700 square feet of floor space, it will have to go through design review. And if it's subject to design review, it can be handled administratively by the Director of Community Development. There's a public notice, but no hearing. So neighbors can weigh in, but there won't be a kind of formal hearing process. More significant changes go to the Historic Preservation Commission for their review. It does not then go to the Design Review Board. It's either Historic Preservation Commission or Design Review Board for properties outside historic districts. So no additional level of bureaucracy. So what about non-contributors and new development? There will be new development in historic districts. There are on occasion empty lots. Some non-contributors will be demolished and replaced. The idea behind new development is that new construction should be sensitive to the character of the historic district. It should complement the existing historic architecture, and it should respect the rhythm of the streetscape in terms of massing, setbacks, garage placement, things like that. It should fit. One final benefit: historic districts bring neighbors together. I didn't really get to know the majority of my neighbors in and around Niobrara until I began the historic district process. I love my neighbors. We have had parties together, sadly, not a year or so. It is wonderful to meet people and to come together in your shared pride in and love for your neighborhood. And it was a really great and unexpected benefit of the process. So this is the last slide. People in the community are now working to figure out what the boundaries of a Verdugo Woodlands Historic District might look like. Don't worry about where the squiggles are on this map. They don't really represent anything in particular. And also what the period of significance should be. So we are at the neighborhood is at the beginning of a process. And there will be, of course, more updates, more information, more meetings. And I gave you my email at the beginning of this. Please let me know if you have questions. You can also just send an email to the Verdugo Woodlands West HOA email address, and that will get to me. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed learning something about the process and about historic districts in Glendale, and also that soon there'll be an opportunity to share more specific information about our very special historic area. So I thank you for your time. I'm going to stop sharing and look forward to seeing you all safe and well sometime soon. Bye-bye.